What is good? It's your big homie 6 Cents. Hope you're doing well. It's the end of the year, and at the end of the year I always get, mushy and sentimental. I get sentimental all the time. I'm super sensitive. But at the end of the year I always kind of backtrack, and I can't help but sit back and get grateful and get humbled by how many cool things I've been lucky enough to do because of music, because of hip hop. And one of the things that I was thinking about lately was just being able to DJ for what has been hundreds of different rappers as they go on stage and they perform for people. Between open mics and touring and developing artists, I've been able to have that opportunity to share stage with so many different types of artists and in so many different types of scenarios. And it really made me remember that I have to share that knowledge that I gained in those experiences. I picked up a lot of info, and I want you to have that info going forward. So today, I thought it would be really cool to talk about stage tracks. Over the years, I've seen a lot of people do it right, and I've seen a lot of people do it wrong. Today, we're going to talk about what makes the best type of stage track in a scenario, and what you should be thinking about as an artist or as a producer if you're making stage tracks for the road. If you're into music tips, performance tips, iOS production, and all the like, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to engage, shoot me something in the comments. I actually have a question for you. Who's some of your favorite artists that you saw perform this year? Who were some of the rappers that you saw in concert that really, really killed it? What was the performance? What song that really, really did it for you? And what type of track, if you can remember, did they perform over? Were they performing over their instrumental? Were they performing over full ad-libs? And we're going to talk about the different types of stage tracks today. But I'm curious to hear what was the best performance you saw and how it was done. So drop that in the comments below. So one of the first things you want to think about when you're preparing a stage mix is the arrangement of the song. A lot of times the way a record is set up works for a listener when they're just listening on the headphones. But if you want to translate that to the stage, it may not make sense in the way that it's currently laid out. There's a lot of questions you can ask yourself when figuring out the arrangement for your stage mix. Does the intro need to be cut? Do I need to put the hook in the beginning? Or do I need to take the hook out of the beginning? Do I need the second verse at all? How am I going to stop the song? Should we have an abrupt stop at the end? Should there be a fade out? Should there be a sound effect? Is there a collaboration in this song? Do I need to take those vocals out? How am I handling ad-libs? These are all these little intricate bits and pieces that you have to figure out when finding the best stage track for you. And it's going to be different for everybody. So experiment a bit and see what makes a lot of sense. I often recommend trying the different types of stage tracks and going to a rehearsal space and performing over them to see which one feels the most natural to you. A lot of rappers will get slack from other genres of music because we'll rap over our lead vocal. And I personally don't like hearing that. I'd never liked doing that as an artist. Some people get away with it. They literally put their song on and they kind of sing over it like it's a bad karaoke practice. But I think there's just so many other ways to do it, especially since we have DAWs that make it easy to bounce different versions of your tracks. So let's talk about some of the different ways to prepare a stage track and the different formats that you might see. The first variation is just an instrumental. And in this case, you have somebody that has the beat and there's no verses and no ad-libs over it. They're just rapping to the beat that was presented by the producer. And the best MCs in the world can do this. When you look at people like Black Thought, he's the first one that comes to mind. I've never seen a Black Thought performance off the top of my head that wasn't more than just him either going over the instrumental or going over a band, but in either case there were no ad-libs in the back. And that's hard to pull off. You have to have a lot of clarity, you have to be loud, you have to be present. So it's really something that's reserved for top tier MCs. And with that in mind, don't feel bad if you can't execute that in a performance. And if you can, all the more reason to do it. Now, another slightly easier variation of a stage track is the hook and ad-lib track. And this kind of stage track has exactly what it sounds like. The instrumental is there, but now we've also added the vocals from the hook, and we have all the ad-libs, those background sounds, the haze and the screams and the doubles and things like that. And this offers a really cool blend. You get the full opportunity to perform the lead vocal as a vocalist, so you're getting a performance out of that person that's on stage. But when it comes to the hook, and that's usually the big energy point, the big drawing point, you have the insurance of that vocal being recorded already. So if you're a little tired from that verse, which tends to happen, you don't have to worry about losing energy when the hook comes back around. And if you happen to have enough energy to add to that hook, all the better. Another variation of stage tracks is a rhyming words version of the stage track, as I like to call it. When you break down a line or you break down a bar in a song, by the time you get to the end of that bar where we're structuring the rhymes in most hip hop, you're often going to have a winded MC, especially if you have somebody that's really, really wordy. At the end of each sentence, they're probably going to lose a bit of their momentum and a bit of their breath. So something that I did for artists, especially if we were going to be on the road and I knew they were kind of getting that road fatigue, was making TV tracks where the last words, the rhyming words, were kept in place while the rest of the vocal wasn't there at all. So in a verse, the first part of the bar would be my MC saying it at full volume. And then as they started to trail off at the rhyming words towards the end, they had that insurance of the verse being there from the stage track. And this was really me kind of mimicking what I like to do as a DJ. I often would find that on those rhyming words, those really important emphatic words, if I didn't say it, my rapper wasn't saying it either, and that rhyming word just didn't happen, and it kills the energy of a show. So whenever I was doing DJ work for rappers, I always tried to, at the very least, remember those rhyming words so I could say them in case they didn't have the energy to say them themselves. And with the beauty of DAWs, with the beauty of digital audio workstations, you can just make a version of that off of the main session, duplicate your session, and then just keep those rhyming words and bounce that stage version to perform with. And the last really quick and easy way of doing a stage track that I'll talk about is just the lead vocal down mix. And that has ad-libs in place, hook in place, everything is there, but you're just turning the lead vocal down a couple of decibels. And this allows the rapper to rap on top of that. Everything sounds full and emphatic, but you still have a bit of insurance in play in case somebody forgets a word or audio goes out for a little bit. Now, something else I wanted to touch on, when you're developing your stage routine and building out stage tracks, you really want to put a lot of thought into the mix and the sonics of everything. You have to make certain sacrifices in a lot of cases, and you have to emphasize certain things in a lot of cases to make these songs that sound great in our headphones also make sense for everybody involved on the stage. One of the first things that I look at differently is sub bass. I tend to be a bit more aggressive with allowing sub bass to stay in the mix when we're talking about a mix for a streaming service or a retail service. But when I'm delivering a stage mix for an artist or I'm working on a stage mix for myself, a lot of that sub bass gets cut. I usually do a lot more emphasis on a resonant sound in the bass, and I do a lot of high pass filtering to get all that rumble off on the stage. And that's important because it's really, really easy to muddy a stage in a big venue versus on your ears and headphones. It's actually one of those weird kind of opposite things, but by cutting the bass in a lot of these records, you actually make the bass in a stage mix sound louder and sound clearer. Another really important thing to focus on is the mono mix versus the stereo mix, and checking your mix in mono for stage. A lot of these stages, as many speakers as they have, they're set up in a way that's actually reproducing a wide mono image. It's not true stereo. So if you haven't mixed and mastered these stage mixes accordingly, you might have instruments that completely disappear in certain venues, and I've seen it happen. There's nothing worse than a song not really showing up in certain rooms because the stereo mix and the mono mix are completely different. Something else that you want to look out for when you're preparing a stage mix is the transients. We always emphasize transients in hip hop more than other genres, but I almost think you really have to put a little extra effort into it when you're developing a stage mix for an artist, because those transients and being able to really hear the rhythm while you're on stage is what keeps you on beat as an artist. A lot of times you'll be rapping in a room that doesn't have a monitor mix for you, and you have to deal with reverb bouncing off the walls and hearing early diffusions from the sound that you're projecting to the crowd. It's really, really easy to lose the drum sound and sound like you're off beat. So when I'm developing a stage mix for artists, I try to really emphasize those transients so they can hear the drums when they're on stage and not get lost. So that's all I got, man. Hopefully you picked up a couple of tips. This stuff is super important. Again, really, live performances, the way you're going to make new fans, you're going to get notoriety, you're going to get comfortable, you're going to have a good time, and you're going to start to make money, hopefully. But a big part of doing that is arming yourself with the tools like a great stage track so that you can perform your songs as best as you can. Do me a favor, like and subscribe. Until next time, peace.